Honey, please, you can't afford to arrest me. Jail is for poor people. You are nothing.
Good morning. Please, everyone, take your seats. You know, in all my years on this bench, and believe me, I've been sitting in this chair for what feels like a lifetime, I've learned something fundamental about human nature. Justice isn't just about laws written in books or precedents set by courts that came before us. Justice is about the soul of a community. It's about looking into the eyes of another human being and recognizing that their life, their safety, their dignity matters just as much as your own. It's about understanding that we are all connected, that when one person acts with recklessness, with cruelty, with complete disregard for others, it sends ripples through our entire society. And sometimes those ripples become waves that threaten to drown everything we hold dear. Today we're here to discuss a case that has tested my patience, broken my heart, and reminded me why I still come to this courtroom every single day, despite the weight of it all. The defendant before me is a young woman named Yasmin Al-Rahman. She's 24 years old, born on June 7, 2000, currently residing at the Peninsula Royal Estates, Unit 12B, one of the most exclusive addresses in our city. But you see, it's not where she lives that brings her here today. It's who she is. Yasmin is the daughter of Prince Khalid Al-Rahman, a member of the Saudi royal family with documented wealth exceeding $3 billion. $3 billion. That's a number most of us can't even comprehend. Her father owns hotels, shopping centers, an entire fleet of luxury vehicles. He has investments in companies across 6 continents. But none of that, absolutely none of that, matters in this courtroom. Because what matters is what his daughter did. Let me tell you what happened, and I want you to really listen, because this isn't just about traffic violations. This is about something much deeper, something that speaks to the very fabric of who we are as a society. 4 months ago, on July 23, 2024, at approximately 3:45 in the afternoon, Yasmin Al-Rahman was driving her vehicle through the Riverside neighborhood. Not just any vehicle, mind you. A 2024 Lamborghini Urus, pearl white with custom gold accents, Saudi diplomatic plates reading KSA 777, worth over $300,000. And she was driving it like she owned not just the car, but the entire street, the entire neighborhood, the entire city. We're not talking about going a little over the speed limit here. We're talking about 85 miles per hour in a 25 mile per hour zone. 85 in a residential area on Riverside Drive between Oak Street and Maple Avenue, where children ride their bicycles, where families push strollers, where elderly residents walk to the corner store to buy their groceries. I want you to picture that for a moment. Close your eyes and imagine a car, a massive luxury SUV, roaring down your street at 85 miles per hour. Imagine the sound, the blur of motion, the sheer terror of seeing that vehicle bearing down on you or your child or your grandparent. But it gets worse, so much worse. When she was pulled over by Officer Rebecca Torres, badge number 562, a decorated 15-year veteran of our police department, at the intersection of Riverside Drive and Oak Street, Yasmin Al-Rahman didn't show remorse. She didn't show concern. She didn't even show basic human decency. According to the police report sitting right here in front of me, case number RV 20240777931, when Officer Torres approached her vehicle at 3:52 in the afternoon and asked if she understood why she'd been stopped, and I'm reading this verbatim from Officer Torres's report. "Do you know who my father is? He could buy your entire police department. One phone call and you'll be directing traffic in a parking lot for the rest of your pathetic career." I have to tell you, when I first read those words, I had to set these papers down. I had to stand up, walk to the window of my chambers, and just breathe for a moment. Because those words, that attitude, that complete and utter contempt for another human being who was simply doing her job, it told me everything I needed to know about what we're dealing with here. This isn't a case about a young person making a mistake. This is about someone who has been raised, whether intentionally or not, to believe that money buys immunity from consequences, that privilege is a shield against accountability, that their family name somehow makes them superior to the rest of us. Officer Torres, and I commend her for this, remained completely professional. She explained to Yasmin that she had been driving at a speed that could have killed someone. She explained that residential speed limits exist to protect the most vulnerable members of our community. And do you know what Yasmin did? She laughed. Not a nervous laugh, not an embarrassed chuckle, a contemptuous, mocking laugh. Then she pulled out her phone, a custom diamond-encrusted iPhone worth more than most people make in 6 months, and she started recording Officer Torres, saying, and again I quote from the report, "I'm filming this so my lawyers can destroy you. You have no idea what you've just done to your career." Officer Torres could have escalated that situation. She could have let her emotions take over, but she didn't. She issued 3 citations at 4:07 that afternoon. Citation numbers RV7931A, RV7931B, and RV7931C for reckless driving, excessive speed, and creating a public hazard. She documented everything properly, professionally, exactly as she'd been trained to do. That's what good policing looks like. And I want Officer Torres to know that her professionalism in the face of such disrespect is noticed and appreciated by this court. But here's where this case takes a turn that makes my blood boil. After receiving her citations, Yasmin went home to her luxury penthouse and she posted on her social media accounts. Her Instagram account, username Princess Yasmin _KSA, which has over 230,000 followers, she posted multiple videos and photos mocking Officer Torres. The posts, which have been submitted as Exhibits D through K in this case, show Yasmin laughing about the incident, calling Officer Torres names I won't repeat in this courtroom, referring to her as a peasant in a uniform and a nobody trying to feel important. One video, posted on July 23rd at 7:15 in the evening, received over 48,000 views in just 12 hours. Another post, made the following morning at 9:30, showed Yasmin sitting in her Lamborghini with the caption, "Back on the road, money talks, badges walk." And then, and this is what truly demonstrates the depths of her arrogance, just 5 days later, on July 28th, 2024, at 1:30 in the afternoon, she was caught doing it again. A doorbell camera belonging to Mr. and Mrs. David Martinez at 315 Oak Street captured her pearl white Lamborghini with those distinctive Saudi diplomatic plates racing through the same neighborhood. Same behavior, same contempt for human life, same arrogance. As if that citation, as if Officer Torres's warning, as if the law itself meant absolutely nothing to her. You see, I've been doing this job for 34 years. Since 1990, I've sat in this chair and presided over thousands of cases. I've seen teenagers who made foolish choices but learned from them. I've seen young adults from difficult backgrounds who made errors in judgment but showed genuine remorse. I've seen people who came before me broken, ashamed, ready to change. And in those cases, I've shown mercy. I've reduced sentences. I've offered alternatives to incarceration. I've given second chances, third chances, sometimes even fourth chances because I believe in redemption. I believe that people can change. I believe in the transformative power of compassion and forgiveness. But I also believe in accountability. I believe that when someone demonstrates through their actions and their words that they have absolutely no regard for the safety of others, no respect for the law, no basic human empathy, then this court has an obligation to act. An obligation to protect the innocent people of this community, an obligation to send a clear message that no one, and I mean absolutely no one, is above the law. Let me tell you about some of the people who live in that Riverside neighborhood where Yasmin Al-Rahman was driving 85 miles per hour. There's Mrs. Elena Vasquez, 78 years old. Every afternoon at 3:30, she walks to the community center 2 blocks away to volunteer, helping children with their homework. On July 23rd, at approximately 3:43 in the afternoon, just 2 minutes before Yasmin came screaming down that street, Mrs. Vasquez was crossing at the intersection of Riverside and Maple. She heard the roar of the engine and froze in the middle of the crosswalk, terrified as that white Lamborghini blew past her. There's little Marcus Johnson, 6 years old, who lives at 297 Riverside Drive. His mother told me that Marcus loves to ride his bicycle on the sidewalk in front of their house. On that same afternoon, Marcus was outside playing. His ball rolled into the street. He started to run after it when his father grabbed him, hearing the approaching vehicle. If his father had been looking at his phone for just 1 second, if he'd been distracted for just one moment, Marcus might not be alive today. There's the Chen family. restaurant owners who immigrated to this country 30 years ago and built a life through hard work and sacrifice. Their daughter, Michelle Chen, is 16 years old. She walks home from school every day along Riverside Drive. She was walking home that afternoon, earbuds in, listening to music for a school project. She didn't hear the Lamborghini coming. A neighbor, Mr. Robert Patterson, saw what was about to happen and shouted at her to get back. She jumped onto someone's front lawn just as Yasmin's vehicle roared past where she'd been standing seconds before. These are real people, real lives, real families. They're not statistics in a police report. They're not abstract concepts. They're members of our community who could have been killed because one person, one privileged, arrogant person, couldn't be bothered to slow down, couldn't be bothered to follow the rules that the rest of us follow every single day. Now let me tell you what happened after this case was filed. Prince Khalid al-Rahman, Yasmin's father, began making calls. Between August 1st and September 15th, my office received 11 phone calls from various intermediaries. I received 6 formal letters, delivered by courier in expensive envelopes. I had 5 different people come to my chambers, including City Commissioner Harold Westbrook, Attorney Marcus Bellamy, from one of the most expensive law firms in the state, and even the director of the International Business Council, all suggesting that perhaps we could find a diplomatic solution to this matter. They mentioned that Prince al-Rahman was willing to make substantial donations to our city. They threw around numbers: $100,000, $200,000, eventually $500,000 to various charities and civic organizations. And I want everyone in this courtroom and everyone who ever watches or reads about this case to understand this. I don't care if someone has $3 billion or $300 billion. I don't care if they're related to a prince or a president or a prime minister. I don't care if they offer to donate $1 million or $10 million. Money does not buy justice in this courtroom. Influence does not purchase immunity from consequences. Diplomatic status does not grant permission to endanger innocent lives. This is what I think about when I look at this case. I think about what could have happened. We are extraordinarily, miraculously fortunate that no one was hurt. But what if 6-year-old Marcus Johnson had run into the street 1 second earlier? What if 16-year-old Michelle Chen had stepped off that curb 1 moment sooner? What if 78-year-old Elena Vasquez had been in the middle of that intersection when Yasmin came through at 85 miles per hour? I have grandchildren, 7 beautiful grandchildren ranging in age from 4 to 15. My youngest, my granddaughter Olivia Marie, is 4 years old, born September 15th, 2020. She has these big brown eyes and this laugh that lights up every room she enters. And when I think about her playing outside, when I imagine someone like Yasmin al-Rahman driving through her neighborhood with complete disregard for her life, for her future, for her family's happiness, it makes me physically ill. It reminds me that we're not just talking about traffic violations here. We're talking about prevented tragedy. We're talking about lives that hang in the balance every time someone decides that the rules don't apply to them. The prosecutor in this case, Assistant District Attorney James Mitchell, who has been with our office for 11 years and has handled over 400 serious traffic cases, is asking for substantial consequences. He's requesting a fine of $25,000, a 3-year license suspension, 200 hours of mandatory community service, and a jail sentence of 120 days to emphasize the gravity of these offenses. The defense attorney, Ms. Catherine Reynolds from Reynolds & Associates, a very capable attorney who graduated from Georgetown Law and has been practicing for 17 years, is asking for leniency. She's pointing out that Yasmin has no prior criminal record in this country. She's arguing that her client is young, that she holds a degree in international relations from the Sorbonne in Paris, that a harsh sentence could impact her future, her ability to travel, her standing in her family. She suggested that a fine of $5,000 and some community service would be sufficient. I've listened to both arguments carefully. I've reviewed every piece of evidence. I've read the police reports multiple times. I've watched the doorbell camera footage from July 28th showing that Lamborghini speeding through the neighborhood again, license plate clearly visible, KSA 777, from Yasmin's account, posts that have now been seen by hundreds of thousands of people around the world. Posts where she mocked Officer Torres, where she bragged about being untouchable, where she demonstrated a complete lack of understanding that her actions affect real people with real lives. I've considered her age, 24 years old. I've considered her background, growing up in palaces, attending the finest schools, having every material advantage imaginable. I've considered everything that should be considered, but I keep coming back to one fundamental principle that guides everything I do in this courtroom. We have laws for a reason. Those laws exist to protect people, to keep our communities safe, to ensure that everyone, regardless of their wealth or status or family name, can live without fear. What troubles me most about this case isn't even the speeding, as dangerous and reckless as that was. It's not even the repeat offense 5 days later. It's the attitude, it's the arrogance, it's the complete absence of empathy. When I look at the evidence, when I read Officer Torres's report from July 23rd, when I see those social media posts mocking a public servant, when I watch that doorbell footage from July 28th, I see someone who has learned through experience that consequences don't apply to them, that their money and status will always protect them, that the rest of us, the ordinary people who follow the rules and respect the law, are somehow beneath them. Well, not today, not in this courtroom, not while I'm sitting in this chair. When a judge sentences someone, we're not trying to be cruel. We're not trying to destroy lives. We're trying to accomplish several goals simultaneously. First, we're punishing the wrongdoing because, yes, punishment is a necessary component of justice. Second, we're trying to deter that person from repeating their behavior. Third, we're sending a message to others who might be watching that this kind of conduct will not be tolerated. And fourth, perhaps most importantly, we're trying to protect our community from future harm. In most cases, I can balance these goals with a sentence that's firm but offers a path to redemption. But this case involves multiple violations on July 23rd and July 28th. It involves attempted intimidation of a law enforcement officer. It involves public mockery through social media seen by hundreds of thousands of people. And most troubling of all, it involves a repeat offense just 5 days after the first incident, demonstrating that the defendant either doesn't understand the seriousness of what she's done or simply doesn't care. Some people watching this will say I'm being too harsh. They'll say that Judge Harrington is known for compassion, known for giving people breaks, known for seeing the best in people. Why is he being so tough now? And my answer is this: compassion without accountability isn't compassion at all. It's enabling. It's allowing someone to continue down a destructive path that will ultimately harm them and others. True compassion sometimes requires tough love. It requires consequences that force someone to confront the reality of their actions. I want to address the defense attorney's argument that Yasmin has no prior criminal record. That's true. She's never been arrested before, never been convicted of a crime. But you know what? Most 24-year-olds don't have criminal records. That's not special. That's not worthy of praise. That's the bare minimum of being a law-abiding member of society. We don't give awards for not breaking the law until now. The argument has also been made that she's young, that at 24 her brain is still developing, that we should give her a chance to grow and mature. I understand that argument. But at 24 years old, Yasmin Al-Rahman is old enough to understand right from wrong. She's old enough to know that driving 85 miles per hour in a residential neighborhood is dangerous. She's old enough to know that threatening a police officer is wrong. She's certainly old enough to know that when you get caught doing something dangerous on July 23rd, you don't go out and do it again on July 28th. This isn't about a young person making an innocent mistake. This is about someone who has been raised to believe that rules don't apply to them, that their wealth and status put them in a different category than the rest of humanity. And unless this court intervenes right now with a clear and unmistakable message, I fear what will happen next time, because there will be a next time. People with this level of arrogance, this depth of entitlement, they don't stop until something forces them to stop, until they face consequences so severe that they cannot be ignored or bought off or negotiated away. So here's what I've decided, and I want everyone to understand that I've given this tremendous thought. I've considered every factor. I've weighed every argument from both Mr. Mitchell and Ms. Reynolds. I've prayed on it because decisions like this are never easy, even when they're absolutely necessary. On the charge of reckless driving from July 23, 2024, citation number RV7931A, I'm sentencing you to 120 days in our county correctional facility. On the charge of attempting to intimidate a law enforcement officer under state statute, I'm adding another 90 days to be served consecutively. On the additional charge of reckless driving from the second incident on July 28th, documented by the doorbell camera at 315 Oak Street, that's another 120 days, also consecutive. That's a total of 330 days, 11 months. You will serve this time in the women's section of the county correctional facility, and I'm ordering that there be no early release under good behavior provisions, no work release program, and absolutely no special accommodations or privileges. You will serve your time exactly like every other person in that facility. Your reporting date is December 5th, 2024 at 8 o'clock in the morning. In addition, I'm imposing a fine of $30,000 to be paid in full within 90 days. Will go to the State Victims of Reckless Driving Fund. $10,000 will go to our public schools traffic safety education program, and $10,000 will go to support our police department's community outreach and training programs. I'm also suspending your driving privileges for 5 years, not 1 year, not 2 years, but 5 full years, beginning today and ending on this date in 2029. And when those 5 years are up, you will be required to retake both the written and practical driving examinations. You will complete a comprehensive driver safety course of at least 40 hours, and you will perform 300 hours of community service, specifically working with families of traffic accident victims or with trauma centers, so you can see firsthand the real consequences of reckless driving. Furthermore, I'm ordering that you be prohibited from operating any motor vehicle during the entire period of your suspension. If you're caught driving during this time, you will face additional criminal charges and a minimum of 1 additional year in jail. No exceptions, no diplomatic immunity, no special treatment. I can see the shock on faces throughout this courtroom, but let me explain why I've made this decision. Yasmin Al-Rahman needs to understand that actions have consequences. Real consequences, not consequences that her father's billions can make disappear, not consequences that expensive lawyers can negotiate into nothing, real, tangible consequences that will affect her life. 11 months in county jail is a long time. It's long enough to think, long enough to reflect, long enough to hopefully emerge as a changed person, but it's not so long that it destroys someone's life. She'll still be 25 years old when she's released. She'll still have her entire future ahead of her. She can still build a meaningful life. But she needed this lesson now, before her arrogance killed someone, because that's where this was heading. It was only a matter of time. The 5-year license suspension is designed to be meaningful. Driving is a privilege, not a right. When someone abuses that privilege as egregiously as Yasmin has, they need to lose it for a significant period. As for the $30,000 fine and 300 hours of community service, those ensure that something positive comes from this negative situation. That money will help people affected by reckless driving. That community service will, I hope, open her eyes to the human cost of her behavior. I know what people will say. They'll claim I'm making an example of her because of who her father is. And you know what? They're partially right. I am making an example, but not because of who her father is. I'm making an example because of who she chose to be, because of the arrogance she displayed on July 23rd, because of the contempt she showed Officer Torres, because of the danger she created on Riverside Drive, because of those Instagram posts to her hundreds of thousands of followers. If this had been a first offense, if she'd shown genuine remorse, if she'd apologized to Officer Torres, if she hadn't posted those mocking videos, if she hadn't gone out and done it again 5 days later, we'd be having a very different conversation. I probably would have given her a fine, some community service, maybe a year's license suspension, and sent her on her way with a warning. But that's not what happened. To the parents watching this case, whether you're here in this courtroom or reading about this later, please teach your children that everyone deserves respect, that police officers are people doing difficult jobs, that laws exist to protect us all, that money and status don't make you better than anyone else, that actions have consequences. Because if you don't teach these lessons, if you let your children grow up believing they're above it all, you're failing them. Yasmin Al-Rahman, you're 24 years old, you're young, this doesn't have to define you. 11 months from now, you can walk out of that facility and make a choice. You can choose to be bitter and angry, or you can choose to learn from this. You can choose to understand that you were wrong. You can choose to become a better person. You can choose to use this experience to develop empathy, humility, and respect for others. I hope you make the right choice. I really do. Because I don't want to see you back in this courtroom in 5 years, facing even worse charges. I don't want to read someday that you finally caused that accident, that you finally hurt someone. I want to believe you can change. But that change starts with accountability. It starts with accepting that this sentence isn't about me being harsh. It's about justice. It's about protecting this community. And yes, it's about giving you a wake-up call that might save your life or someone else's. Officer Torres, thank you for your service, for your professionalism, for not letting this defendant's behavior compromise your integrity. You are exactly the kind of officer we need. To everyone else, remember this. The law applies to everyone. Justice is blind to wealth and status. Your actions matter. Your choices have consequences. No amount of money or privilege will protect you if you endanger others. This court is adjourned. The defendant will be remanded into custody immediately to begin serving her sentence. Bailiff, please proceed.